everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I do truly appreciate it. And I just got back from Maui. I just got home within the last hour. And the friendly neighborhood mail lady, while I was away, brought me something. She brought me a bunch of things to multiple locations. But the first thing I want to look at right here comes directly from Quail Hill Parkway in Irvine, California, from one of my absolute favorite publishers, Walking God's Green Earth, and that is Suntup Editions. Paul Suntup at Suntup Editions has published now. This is the second numbered edition from Suntup that I've gotten on one of my absolute favorite authors on God's Green Earth, and that is Robert McCammon. So I've already shown you Boy's Life, one of his, perhaps his most beloved, well-known and popular novel. And then arguably his other one, which may be 1A or 1B, more true horror, is Swan Song. And it's actually the first book that I've ever read from Robert McCammon. I think probably a lot of people could say such a thing. Their first read from the author was Swan Song. And Swan Song is a novel that when I first began reading it, I for a minute there, I didn't know if I liked it or not. It was not because it was a bad novel in any way, but because my expectations were that it would be different than what it was. So let's give a little example. This is a book that has been oft and always, probably always will be, compared in one way or another to the Stephen King novel called The Stand. And I read that novel, I think, my 92 or 93, I can't remember. I was in high school, maybe sophomore year, freshman year, sophomore year, I don't remember exactly when. But I read it in high school, it was given to me. And that was a book that was a completely different journey for me. See, I started The Stand thinking this is the greatest thing that could ever be written. And as the book wore on, I really started losing my love for the story. And the finish for me didn't really land as well. Swan Song was completely the opposite. Reading it, I started thinking, wait a second, what's going on here? And then it just got better and better, and I started to get more and more into the characters as they developed, and I figured out who I was into and how the story was going, and learned to accept it for what it was. And that is a post-apocalyptic horror story that is fantasy. It is in no way using realism. It starts off a realistic thing that could happen, but the story pretty quickly becomes very unrealistic. And it also starts off with characters that are kind of, they're not your typical hero characters. So there's a few characters, and I don't want, this is not a book review, but I'll talk just a little bit. You first get to know some of these characters. For example, the character who would be known as Sister Creep. Well, she's not really in any way an admirable character. She's crazy, and she is off her rocker. And then you get a variety of other characters. Swan herself, the titular character, Sawanda Prescott, is a young girl, a nice, sweet girl who seems to have the ability to make grass grow and things like that. And she's living in a bad, broken home, really getting started off in life in some of the most negative possible ways. And while she is the titular character and the story revolves around her, it's not all her. And that's what makes it cool. I think one of the things about this story is that there are characters for everyone. And I was instantly a fan of Josh Hutchins, Black Frankenstein, because I'm a professional wrestling fan. Josh Hutchins was an aged, past his prime professional wrestler, just getting by, making towns and doing the work and stuff like that. And it actually talks a little bit about the work of professional wrestling, which was interesting from a novel from, I think, 1987, that in 1987 it was still kind of protected on how they did things. And while McCammon's version of it wasn't exactly how it was done, it is kind of neat to see a little bit of behind the scenes there. But other characters, we get to know Earth House and Colonel Macklin, and we get to meet and no Roland Croninger, snot-nosed teenage punk, in the back of his parents' car, extremely irresponsible and self-serving kid who becomes a huge part of the villainous side of the story. But the story is essentially a nuclear war occurs. In the common ways the nuclear war occurs in fiction. Some mistakes happen here, some mistakes happen there, missiles goes flying, before you know, boom, boom, boom. And now you've got different people in different places and how they're having to survive this post-nuclear life where most everything is destroyed and most people are gone. And so radiation is a big part of this. It's causing grotesque deformities on a lot of the different people. And I don't want to get into any of the details of that, but it's causing grotesque deformities. And people, from one person from here, one person from there, they start slowly as the story progresses to meet and join and find a goal, and they're in different directions heading ultimately towards a point. And that's both good and evil. And this is a book about good versus evil. And one of the things that Robert McCammon has usually worked very hard at is having a clear focus on good and evil, a separation. Good does these things, evil does these things. And it's some of the more common, obvious stuff. Good people don't murder and rape and steal and things like that and degrade and whatever. They don't discriminate and such as that. Well, evil does. So it's pretty clear, pretty cut and dry in most Robert McCammon stuff. But it is a great story. And if there's one thing that Robert McCammon does very well, is he sticks to finish. And the ending of Swan Song made me feel good, hopeful, happy, seeing no spoilers, hopeful and happy, and I'll just leave it there. But a great book, a big book. And that's one of the difficulties of publishing such a big book. If you're going to make it nice, you're going to make it fancy, it's going to be fat. When you're talking about a book that's in the neighborhood of 1,000 pages, it's going to be fat. Big, thick, quality paper, quality bindings, quality materials, enclosures, all that stuff. It's tough to make a book not huge. And when they're too big, they're too cumbersome and they take up too much space and they look funny and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get to the Suntup Editions publication. That's what we have come to love about Suntup Editions, is they work very hard to make sure our stuff gets to us in tip-top, cream of the crop shape. And that's with big, sturdy, healthy boxes, form-fitted foam, coffin lid covers on our books. We open it up and I'll just kind of show you what's in here. One of the things that they also do, and I hope they continue, is book-specific bookmarks. And we'll see this book comes in 2 different editions. And the bookmarks contain different illustrations by the illustrator for this edition, Ed Binkley. And we've seen the illustrations. I've shown them to you from the classic edition. Fantastic. And so there is one. And then this book comes in 2 volumes, unlike the classic edition, which was 1 volume. This book was split in 2, and there is the other. So you have the good bookmark, and you have the evil bookmark, good versus evil, and just fantastic illustrations throughout, with a new introduction by the author, Robert McCammon, and illustrations by Ed Binkley. Suntup Editions 2025. But what else I have in here? I don't know what you would call this. Is it I don't know. It's not an errata sheet. It's an information sheet, I guess would be more apropos. Suntup Edition, Swan Song by Robert McCammon, numbered edition. Thank you for your purchase. For added protection during shipment, each book has been placed in a poly bag. The bag should be removed when shelving, but may be reused when you need to ship it again, or should you need to ship it again. Thank you. And so what the concerns may be, as you see how this thing is set in form-fitted foam, this great big enclosure. Well, one of the concerns, when a book is going through the shipping process and it's being bounced around, moved around in the truck, bounced around, moved around on the plane, going from the form of transportation to the next, put in a box, put it sideways, upside down, however it may fit, stuff moves around inside. And while they can protect this from moving around inside the box with the form-fitted foam to protect the books inside the enclosure, there's a chance that while that stuff might move just slightly in there, that materials like goat skin leather, which we'll see here, may get scuffed or scratched even against a velour-lined clamshell enclosure. So let me take this out of this overall bag, and we'll see what all we're talking about in here. But here is our clamshell enclosure, cloth covered, just beautiful. And you can see it is thick. Let's look a little more closely at the label. It's not damaged. It's part of the design. Part of the design to make it look slightly worn, but that is the logo. And it's a leather, it looks like a leather label, slightly inset into that cloth spine on the slipcase. I love the colors. It looks so good. And it looks like blind stamping on the leather label. So I don't know for sure, but I think that's probably the goat skin that's used on the spine of this book. And you can see the two-tone, and out of here is not damaged. Those are the bags that he talks about that the books are shipped in. We'll see that there. But the two-tone clamshell, this is just quality stuff, as Suntup does. Fantastic. But I'm going to set this down for a second. We'll hold it up here and hope for the best. Open it up so you can see what she looks like as I open her up. So each book is bagged. On my shelves, they won't be bagged, but the bagging helps to stop this leather here from rubbing on stuff. And we've seen in volumes, not necessarily from Suntup, but from everyone, perhaps even Suntup, where that slight rubbing can cause some discoloration or wear on a leather spine or the top edges of a board or something like that. It can just happen. So we got a velour line in the back here of the slipcase, but the tops are that cloth. You can see here the tops are that cloth. And so conceivably rubbing could cause wear. So this is what she looks like shipped here. I'm going to set that case down and we'll look at each individual volume as in each individual volume. So not only do we have them bagged, but there is a plastic divider, which I'll keep between the books. Again, that acts as a separator between one volume and the next. So this little plastic sheet here will go between each volume. I'll set that to the side. Don't want to get too confused. But then we'll look at volume number 1, individually bagged. And what I'll do is I'll just take stuff like this and I'll put it back in the original shipping box with the original shipping materials. And they'll go into a giant closet that I have for who knows when and who knows where. But this is just a fantastic, this is volume 1. And the way I know it is volume 1 is right there on the spine is the number 1. And it is quarter bound goat skin leather. The goat skin comes from Alran Tannery in France. And I get all my leather, all my goat skin leather, I get from Alran Tannery. Perhaps, I don't know. I don't know how many goat skin leather things I have. It seems like I've got another volume recently from Suntup that had goat skin leather from Alran Tannery. But to look at the texture on that spine of the leather and the way it feels, feel it. It almost feels like suede, but it's not. It's so soft. It's beautiful, and the texture. And we'll compare them side by side to see how they vary. But again, you see that goatskin leather label slightly inset to the European cloth covered boards. And you can see it, and you can definitely feel it. Gently feel it. Feel it gently. It's a crinkle texture to it, but it's just fantastic stuff. I mean, the cloth doesn't, it'd be hard to tell just by looking, is it paper or is it cloth? But in fact, Suntup says European cloth. So it's awesome. Feels good, looks good. And then look at the spine. The spine we got, I don't know how well you can see it here, but the head and tail bounds are also goatskin leather, Smith sewn binding, fantastic stuff. So there's volume 1. And let's open it up and take a look. Our end sheets, end papers, they are black. They're Hanamule Bugra. And the book itself is printed on what Suntup often, or I think they often use, Mohawk Via, Laid, Laid, Mohawk Via. I know Mohawk Via, I see that a lot. The word laid, I don't see it a lot, and I'm not a paper expert. But I know what I like when I see it, when I feel it, and you can feel it. This is thick paper. And this is why it's hard to make a giant book in a limited edition. You got 1,000-ish pages, and you got quality paper. That quality paper is not thin like the Bible. It's thick. You make a Bible with thick pages, you're going to have a big, thick book you can't hardly handle, and the same thing goes for Swan Song. And Suntup has done some very thick volumes, and I think they're over it. I think Imagica, Poe, well, not as much Poe, but Imagica was probably a road too far. Is that the right use of that phrase? Imagica was a little bit too thick for a book to be. And I think Suntup has said, we're not going to do that anymore. As much as you prefer to keep a book in a volume, if you're going to do a fine press edition, it's going to be really thick if there's a lot of pages in a book. So either A, you put tiny, tiny typeset, you use very thin paper, or you have a gigantic book, or you split it in 2 volumes. And I think either way, there's not a perfect solution for everyone. But Suntup, and I think it's a good choice, has landed on splitting them into 2 volumes when the books are too big and too thick. And there's the table of contents for volume 1. You can see at the top volume 1. And then I just noticed here, volume 2 also would be in here. But this is volume 1, so those chapters won't be here. And then from the Journal of Burl Oberly, and this is an original introduction by Robert McCammon. Robert McCammon, August 2023. So he wrote that in August 2023, and it's now October of 2025. This book has been in the work for years and years, and he wrote that introduction a couple years ago. But I'll just show you some of the cool stuff in here. The Point of No Return. And see how good it looks. And this is an illustrated book. We showed you some of the pictures by Ed Binkley, but also a book in 2 volumes. So one of the questions might come up. It is numbered. It is signed by the author and the artist, but it's signed apparently on volume 2, because at the end of volume 1, you have blank pages and then the end pages. But we'll look at volume 1, then we'll switch over to volume 2. I want to look and see what kind of illustrations we have here in volume 1. And it's a nice book. I'm so glad to have this one. I've got some limited edition versions, signed limited edition versions of this book, but none of them even come close. And that includes Suntup's classic, obviously. Their classic is their most economically priced edition. None of them even come close to this numbered edition that I'm holding in my hands right now. Now, on the surface, you can say, well, the Dark Harvest edition is signed and numbered, come in a slipcase. It has illustrations in it. That's good stuff. I'm glad I have it. Very glad I have it. I wouldn't get rid of it. Keep it. It's a keeper for me. And then you say the Subterranean Press edition, also signed and numbered, illustrated, and it came in a slipcase. Again, nice edition. But this is a fine press edition. And then the classic edition also, which I probably say, as far as the nicest up until now, the classic edition beats out the Subterranean Press edition, because I like the artwork better. I like the way it looks better. Overall, I think it's very comparable in terms of quality, but I like the looks and the design better. But this is a step up, a step above. It's a different level from having a nice limited edition book to a fine press edition book. And I don't even want to talk about Subterranean or Suntup editions, lettered edition, because I'm not lettered guy. I am not because I don't like them. I just ain't gonna go there. I feel like I spend an appropriate amount of money, in my opinion, on what I get. Lettered editions up the ante to above what I'm looking for. But let's take a look at volume 2. And before we go any farther, let's just kind of side by side volume 1 and volume 2, because while they're built the same way, essentially, this is fine grade goatskin leather. So you're going to have different sorts of patterns and natural variations between the two. But volume 1 and volume 2 are both obvious by the numbers 1 and the number 2, brought to you by the numbers 1 and the numbers 2. And then the covers look so nice. A slight comparison there. They look so nice. Man, I'm glad I was able to get one of these. But let's take a look at number 2. One of the things that I showed you on number 2, and there's same fine quality binding, goatskin leather head and tail bands, is the limitation page, the signature and all that kind of stuff. So the back of volume 2 has the limitation page. And this is limited to 250 numbered copies printed on Mohawk via Lade. It is not letterpress printed. It is not. But it's printed on quality, fine quality paper. This is copy number 213. And this is a hand-numbered copy signed by Robert McCammon and by artist Ed Binkley. The text type is Albertan, designed by Jim Rimmer, originally cut and cast as a new metal type by Rimmer himself. Albertan was later developed and expanded into a multi-weight open type digital font Canada type. Interior design and typography by Jason DeWinitz. And let's take a look at the rest of the story with a new introduction by the author. Okay, that's all from the original stuff there. And then here it jumps right in to the story, jumps right back into the story. And it's nice paper. Let me just show you one of the pages. The color, I love the color. I love the text. It's very readable. The margins, it looks nice. They've done it right. Suntup has done it right. And let's look at the rest of these Ed Binkley illustrations that are included here. Just fantastic work. For a fantastic story, one of my favorite authors. It's just all of the good stuff coming together in a wonderful, wonderful edition that I'm glad to have on the shelf, glad to have in the collection. And I actually have a second copy coming. I bought a second copy. I bought a copy, pre-ordered it from a person who already had rights to the book. And then I was able to buy the book on the release day to get rights. And so I ended up with 2 copies. And one of the copies, a guy by the name of Jeff Terry from the Jeff Word, has said that he wants it. He wants to work up a trade. So we'll put a trade together for that one when it comes in, get that stuff figured out. But it's got a home, and hopefully a good home. And then finally there's I missed it. I missed the fold out. Let's see. There's Josh Hutchins and Swan right there at the end. And in here, I've got to find it. There is a fold out. It's right in the back. So I didn't miss it. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. And this is the dust jacket artwork from the classic edition. So one of the things about the early numbered editions and what the Suntup called the artist edition was that they came with, the artist edition came with a dust jacket. Now we have the classic edition for some issues, which are signed by the author. The classic editions, originally they didn't have the dust jacket artwork in the numbered editions. And well, you're selling the finer version with something less than. So at some point, Suntup started putting the dust jacket artwork into the numbered editions. And I don't know if they always do it or not, but they do it a lot. And it works best as a fold out, because if you're making a really wide piece of art that wraps all the way around a dust jacket in a book that's vertical like this, well, fold out seems to show it best. But that's about all I can think of. The only lives I can think of to tell at the moment. And Suntup's Swan song is unbelievable. It is so nice. They did such a great job with this edition. I'm so glad to be able to add it to my collection. Now the problem for me will be finding out where to put it on the shelf. And I'm not going to shelve it like this, but this is what we're talking about right here. It's beautiful. And I would find a place to put it on the shelf. High quality stuff for a great story. And I can think of no more lies to tell. So thank you for your time. I do truly appreciate it, and say la vie, baby. Doo-doo.
Peanut butter and jam!